Hello everybody. So this video is going to cover an idea that I've had for a little while. Just wanted to cover all of my different Pennsylvania railroad engines. Pennsylvania is by far my favorite. Not really sure why, even though I am from Pennsylvania. It doesn't really have to do much with anything locally. I was fortunate enough at a pretty early age to see the Pennsylvania Railroad Museum, which I actually saw one of the GG1s and some of the other equipment that they had there at the time. But my love for the Pennsy has to do more with how experimental they were, the diversity of their power. They had great electric engines, had great steam engines, had some really cool diesels, and they had a lot of big power, a lot of experimental stuff. So all of those things kind of appeal to me. So I guess that's kind of why I like them, just because of how different that they are. So we'll dive right into it here. I'm going to start kind of and work my way around in a circle of everything I have. So we'll probably be starting at some of the later era things and kind of going back in time. So we'll dive right in here, literally. So as we come up and out here, I have my E8s. These are Lifelike Proto 2000s. From the mid-90s. Presently they have lock sound in them, but they are having some trouble and I think they need some keep alives. So I'm actually going to be converting these to Tsunami 2 since they have a pretty good file. And also the keep alives are a little bit less expensive on Tsunami. And then we have Broadway Limited Shark Noses. These are Paragon 2. For right now I only have the one AB set. Only the A unit is powered. These are fantastic engines and will probably get the review of their own at some point. Even though they're not a new product, I think they're an excellent one. Probably to date, these are one of the only diesels that I have, or really any engine for that matter, that I haven't torn apart or found something wrong with it that I needed to fix. So that alone is a compliment for them in itself. Next up, I have Broadway Limited Centipedes. These are Paragon 2. Picked these up at a show last year. Haven't really messed with them too much. I don't know if I'll put new sound in these or not. The sound file that's in them is kind of bland, but there isn't really anything out there specific to the Centipedes, so I'm kind of stuck with what's in there for now. But I might redo at least the speakers of them. But really, really cool engines. And they are big. And one of my more recent acquisitions here, this is actually one of the engines that's at, or actually inside of the Pennsylvania Railroad Museum in Strasburg. It's a GP9, number 7006. Haven't done much with that yet, but I might even do like a little small Strasburg museum at some point. And then this here is one of my older engines. This is actually an IHC. It's just a little 040 switcher. Not really prototypical. I'm pretty sure that they didn't really even have that road number on them, but it's just a cool, cute little engine. Put a little keystone on there, which is not prototypical, but just for decoration, since it seemed a little bit more plain than some of my other engines. And then next up here we have a Broadway Limited K4 1361. Which is by far the most famous of the K4s. This was actually restored in the 80s and then kind of broke relatively quickly. Supposedly it's under restoration again, very, very slowly. Someday it might run again. And then also here I have the only other remaining K4, which is number 3750, which is also at the Pennsylvania Railroad Museum in Strasburg. I actually have some video of this engine. The real one is in very, very sad shape. Let me get turned around here. And then we have a Bachmann GG1 here, which is in the Congressional scheme. This has lock sound in it. And then I have another Broadway. Or actually, no, this is not a Broadway. This is another Bachmann GG1 with lock sound in it. The Bachmann GG1s are excellent, so don't let anybody tell you that they're not. Very strong pullers, great lighting, very easy to put sound in, everything that you'd want. And then this here is an old IHC Premier Edition, which means that it had dual motors in it. So it actually has dual flywheel motors in it. This has Digitrax and actually LEDs in it. This is one of the very first DCC conversions that I did. I'm thinking about actually taking the bottom part out and putting in a Bachmann drive, or kind of just taking the shells off one of these and transplanting the shell onto it. I don't know, we'll have to see. I haven't really messed with it too much. This paint scheme is actually called Pre-Loewy, which stands for Raymond Loewy, which is the guy that designed many of the Pennsylvania Railroad designs. So this is kind of one of the prototypes for it. And then also on the inner loop here, this is an 8-car IHC passenger set that I just picked up. And this is supposed to represent what's called the Fleet of Modernism. The colors are not quite right on it. Actually, pretty much everything but the little loop around the windows there is supposed to be more like a red color, whereas these are kind of all one color, so it's not really correct, but it is the closest that anyone's come to doing a set, so that's why I picked them up. They'll be a decent placeholder until someone else, maybe like Walthers, actually does a full set someday. And then I also have my T1, and this is an as-delivered configuration because it has less skirting on it. T1 duplex, and this is a Broadway Limited engine, and it has actually QSI sound in, but not the original QSI. So in a future video I'm going to go over a little bit of what that's about. And then we're going to jump around to the outside loop here. And then on the outside loop here we have number 6755, which is also an engine that's at Strasburg. This represents the last surviving M1. And probably one of the bigger examples of remaining Pennsylvania Railroad steam. Not in very good shape. This is another one I had on video before. It's in pretty sad shape outside right now. And that is a Broadway Limited Blue Line model, which still has the original sound for now. I may upgrade that to something else at some point. And then we have here a Broadway Limited J1. I love the J1s. It's one of my favorite steam engines, definitely one of my favorite Pennsylvania steam engines. Might actually be my favorite, I don't know. And this is a Paragon 2 with smoke. This will definitely get some type of aftermarket sound of some other type at some point. And then we have here another T1. This one's a little bit different because this is the prototype version, which you can see here by the greater skirting and also the little portholes there. This had Paragon 2 in it, which the Paragon 2 is actually taken out. It is kind of stripped inside right now. So that's why all the tethers aren't going into the tender. But that is going to get probably the same setup as my other T1, which will be QSI. And then here we have the two crown jewels of the collection, probably out of my entire collection of any road names. This is a Broadway Limited S2 turbine, Paragon 3. And this version is the kind of mid-length smoke deflectors. I really like the higher deflector versions with the big old elephant ears on there. I think it looks fantastic on there. Excellent model, brass hybrid. And then pretty much the crown jewel of the collection is my Broadway Limited Q2. Another one of the experimental Pennsylvania engines. This is a brass hybrid model. Paragon 2, and I will probably enhance that with some type of other sound at some future point. Awesome looking model. So that's it for this video, and that's just kind of a little bit of highlights there of what my Pennsylvania collection is, and maybe I'll do one of these on my modern fleet at some future point. So that's all for this one.